My name's Lynn Weiler. I've been married to Kim Weiler for 38 years. Next week will be our anniversary. And Viva began as a desire with Kim to bring Bible school teaching to the rural areas of Guatemala. So when Viva began, we started with all the paperwork in Canada to become a registered charity there, with our work, of course, being in Central America. So at that time, we had 3 semi-teenage children, and we drove our vehicle back and forth to Guatemala in those years. And that was about 22 years ago. And we rented a house up in the mountains for about 4 years until we bought this property here that you see and began building with this, we call it the little rancho behind us, and a little kitchen area and a first bathroom. And since then, the whole thing has sort of morphed. We had no vision for all of this. We did not know we would be having a children's program, or a feeding program to the school children, or a college to, the senior high students, or a children's home, or any of those things. Kim came with the sole purpose of teaching Bible school to pastors that were in the rural areas that didn't have an opportunity to come into the city, Guatemala City, to take Bible school training. So the kids and I, we stayed on our own little postage stamp of Canada, up in a place called San Lucas, Zacatepeques, much different than this, high up in the mountains, high elevation. Literally, you could see your breath inside the house at night. That's how cold it was. When you were, sitting in your bed reading a book, you could see your breath. No central heating, so it was cold. Whereas here, you've got 30-degree weather all the time and sweating all the time. Pardon me. So when we first began, I thought he was going to come. We were going to come, maybe stay 6 months or a year in this country, and we tacked on another year and tacked on another year. And when we bought this property, I kind of figured, okay, this is where we're going to be for a while. So, 20-some years later, we're still here and having a blast hosting teams and reaching out to the community and, all those kinds of things that we've been allowed to do here. It's been a blessing from the beginning. It was crazy out of my mind when we first started, because I didn't get vision. I didn't have a call to be a missionary. All I knew was that I made a vow, for better or worse, I was going to be the best wife I could and the best mom I could, and that's what I've brought to the country. So the little ones that are running around here, try and be the best mom, and those other ones around, try and be a person that they can come to and count on. So to begin with, the goal was to bring Bible school training to pastors and leaders that were far enough out in the rural area that they couldn't get to a Bible school, they couldn't get to university, they couldn't get to a place where they could go on to further education. So Kim and his sidekick, Luis, at that time, that helped with translation, would travel out into the rural areas of Guatemala to bring this Bible school education. So along with that, many of these rural pastors had great vision, great heart, great faith. Some of them could not even read a Bible, but because they had been touched so deeply by the Holy Ghost and knew that the gospel message is what their nation needed, they would just go out and tell them what Jesus did for them. And so that simple gospel message was taken out, and churches were springing up everywhere. People's hearts were changed, and salvations were, 10s, 20s, hundreds of people were getting saved. And there were churches all over the place where there were pastors that had very little training. Some of them literally could not read. Some of them did not have Bibles. So to have a guy like Kim come out to their area and say, okay, if you can at least meet at this church at this time, we'll do a weekend, like a seminar, not conference, but they went through Bible school training, they had testing once a month, and as they were given their assignments, they took them home, studied as best they could, whether they had children that helped them read, however it worked out. Kim would come back and go through the next month. And oftentimes we would have crusade evangelism where different teams, different ones would come, and we would target an area where a pastor would say, we really need to get in that area. There's people there, they need to hear the gospel. So out into the boondocks. I mean, I'm talking, sometimes we had to have 3 and 4 interpreters from, I can't remember, Quechua, Quiche, Spanish, English, and back, and it made for a very long service when you had to interpret that much. But God was there. He showed up. Holy Spirit showed up. You saw salvations and healings and deliverances, miraculous, just power of God came down. And we call it an open heaven because God was here and prayers went up, and his sovereignty came over the nation where people just believed and received and went out by faith and discipled others. So to bring it up to present day, yesterday we had a graduation here, and our Bible school just completed another year in October, so now November we're having the graduation. And one of our young students, her name is Sonia, she just completed her, and it's in Spanish, but anyway, her degree in theology is what it boils down to. And she also was one of the children that came up in our children's home. So from our children's home, which is one of the outreach ministries we had, she has been here on base working for Viva, and she does, little interviews, she does little reports on the feeding program and the children's home and the abuelito program and feeding program and the teams that are here. She probably will post something on you. And she was able to graduate from our Bible school. So here's a young woman that came from nothing, thought her life was over. Her mother has never been in the picture as a mother. Her dad has been away most of her life. And at one point she was going to end her life because she saw nothing. And yet Jesus came in and said, I love you, daughter, and I have more for you. And so yesterday, her standing on the podium, receiving her certification for finishing her theology degree. The previous year, she finished in the college her degree. And so Viva isn't just sort of a ministry that comes in and blesses a few people over a week or 2 or 3 weeks, or builds one house and leaves again. We've been in the community for a long, long time. Last night also, just as we were finishing, one of the neighbors came and said, can you come? My grandma is sick. She needs to see a doctor. And my son-in-law, Nelson, was able to take her and the grandson into the Centro de Salud. And they come, they count on us, we do what we can. We don't always have the medicines, we don't always have the capabilities. We do have a fabulous doctor, Dr. Jaime, who is also a pastor, and that's where most of us go to church. He helps us out an awful lot. He just, I guess, was able to give Danny some understanding of why he loses such focus. So we're in the community, and the community knows us. And we've gone through some rocky times. There's always somebody out there that's going to get their nose out of joint because we didn't give them a new car, or we didn't put a roof on their church. I mean, there are people out there that want more, and we do tend to fight with entitlement, because in this culture, when you say you want to help somebody, you think you're going to do the whole thing for them. So as Canadians, we've had to learn to dial that back and say, we would like to come alongside you. What are your needs? We'll see, what we can do for you. So that was a learning curve for us, because my husband has a huge heart, and he would just yeah. But then they're not satisfied because they think they need more. So that's been a fine line. But, for the most part, people are so appreciative. They don't just go in and say, yeah, I'll receive Jesus. You're going to pray for me now, I'll receive Jesus. It's like, no, I'm not ready right now. I'm not ready. So we've had many times where teams have come for several years in a row, and they remember, we prayed for her 4 years ago and she gave her heart to the Lord this time. It's awesome. So again, you see the effect of being in community for a long period of time, and it's by God's design. That's, if He tells us to move on tomorrow, we'll move on tomorrow. But for here and now, we're here to stay. I would go back to my first time in Guatemala was in July 1995. Kim and I flew down. We stayed in the house where we ended up renting for 4 years. And it was a dark and rainy, dreary, stormy night. And I had no reference point to where we were going, where we were going to end up. Kim had seen the place before. The friends from Guatemala City that dropped us off sort of picked us up at the airport, drove us there, dropped us off, and left us. There was no phone. This was before cell phone, internet. Like, we barely had a phone line. And we didn't speak the language either. So that first night in this, it had been a missionary home, but it had been closed up for many, many months. And in rainy season, things tend to get very damp and dark and moldy and smelly and disgusting. Anyway, we slept in bunk beds, wooden, like handmade wooden bunk beds with heavy cotton tick mattresses that were damp and stinky, and crawled. He was in his bunk, I was in my bunk, tried to go to sleep, and I couldn't because the smell was so bad. And I'm thinking, God, if you have called me here, you have to take my sense of smell away. I can't survive here. I can't do this. I can't do this. And somewhere along the line, I fell asleep, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with such a heavy, oppressive feeling all around me. I thought, I'm losing it. This is nuts. I don't know what this is. Like a super heavy oppression. And it's like, Kim, wake up. Kim, we need to pray. Kim. And he finally woke up, and it was like, boom. And he felt it immediately. And it's like, what? There was somebody here. There's somebody here. And he was going to run into the kitchen and get the machete to protect us. And it was such a spiritual oppression outside. You know the Grim Reaper with the big black hood and big black dudes? I don't know, spiritual, I don't know, real, I don't know what it was, but they were outside the door, front door, trying to come in. And so immediately we came together and we started praying. And we prayed and prayed in the Spirit, prayed hard, and prayed and prayed and prayed until we fell asleep, knowing that was the weapons of our warfare were not carnal. We needed to go at this in the Spirit. And I just felt like that was Satan's attack against me personally, to try and say, nah, you don't have what it takes. You're not going to make it. Well, in that morning, we woke up about 8. The sunshine was streaming through the window. The birds were singing. It just felt like, wow, almost felt like home. It was still really dirty. But anyway, we just kind of looked at each other and thought, whoa, that was some serious warfare. An enemy did not want us here. So then we get a call from the friends that dropped us off the night before. And they said, are you okay? And we said, why, what do you mean? He said, well, 2 o'clock, we woke up and we felt to go hard intercessing for you because we felt such a demonic attack against you guys. So they were praying in the Spirit for us. 2 o'clock, when we woke up, thought, there's an attack here. We were praying and got through the night. And we said, thank you for listening and obeying and, answering that. So from that point forward, I thought, God, you're with us. God, you want us to succeed. You have not called us here just to get us wiped out. You've called us here to succeed because we've got something for these people, and we just surrender and become your vessels. So if at any other time there's stuff going on, I look back to that initial point and say, no, God's here. He's mightier. We can do this. I think firstly, everybody has something to give. Whether it's gifts, talents, abilities, everybody has something that they can contribute. And when people come here to Viva for the first time, they don't quite understand how multifaceted the ministry is, but it's like we've got something for everybody. So to bring what you have and to be able to share that, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes with a group of kids, sometimes with a group of abuelitos. We have had churches that have come to say, we don't want to do the evangelistic stuff, we want a project, we want to build a church or build a house. That's good. We love that. People build and it's everlasting, or for the most part. So to be able to come and bring what you have and be a part of, and I like to think of Viva as a family, because when people come, we embrace you, we greet you, we long to have you as a family, and when you go, we remember you as part of our family. So, and we always invite you back as well. So, yeah, I would say Viva is an opportunity to come and to share what you have with those who perhaps don't.